a cancerous evil who spread his cloak of death over the world and ravaged its beauty with the foulest corruption. Armies commanded by the Shadowlord's baleful creatures swept the continents in a merciless march of death. Few escaped.
Alright, well wasn't that an interesting introduction? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me once again today. As always, my name is General Confusion, and this is Fantasy General. This is another one of the granddaddies of modern strategy gaming. This was put out by SSI, the company behind Panzer General and a bunch of other early PC strategy titles in 1996, which means that as of this year, this game is old enough to drink. But it's still, I think it's still very cool. It doesn't have a lot of the modern quality of life features that modern strategy games have, but I think it's still very, very interesting. So let's dive right into it. I am not an expert at this game by any means. I did not play this game until I was already an adult. I've only picked it up a couple of years back, and I haven't played a huge amount of it. I have played some, played through a campaign or two, but we'll kind of see how it goes. So we're thrown right into the game. And at the start, we have to pick our character. So, we can pick the Knight Marshal, the Sorceress, Mordra, Archmage Krell, or Lord Marcus. And they all have different armies at the start, and they also have some differences in how their armies will progress. So, Fantasy General is a turn-based strategy game where you play a series of linked scenarios, guiding an army across a continent, or several continents actually, in an effort to defeat the Shadowlord. It's set in kind of a gonzo fantasy world where you've got a lot of the traditional fantasy tropes, as well as mechanical men, and werecreatures, and sorcery, and dirigibles, and all that good steampunk, dieselpunk kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of tactical complexity to the system, as is usual in SSI titles, that we'll get into a little bit as I go on, but first we have to choose the army. We've got Lord Marcus, who is an infantry recruiter. His starting army, he's famous at a warlord and a general, all these little cool abilities that I'll explain as we dive into things. His army starts off with one very solid heavy infantry unit, a couple of crappy light infantry units, a couple of skirmishers, and an archer. Knight Marshal Callus, he can cast some spells, and he's good at recruiting cavalry as well as being a healer. He starts off with some heavy cavalry, some lighter melee cavalry, some skirmish cavalry, an okay unit of heavy infantry, and a couple of light infantry. Mordra can summon monsters and is a beast master, which means that she starts off with these bestial creatures. So you get a unit of barbarians, which are pretty decent units. We've got some lizard men, bestial heavy infantry. We've got some fire beetles, which are bestial cavalry. Some archers, and a spellcaster, which has a skirmish magical attack, and can also summon banshees to frighten enemy units. Or, of course, we can go with Archmage Krell, who is a spellcaster and a very good one. That's what Archmage means. We start off with some tree men, who are very solid, but vulnerable to mechs. Some air warriors, also vulnerable to mechs. Some unicorns. In fact, most of his units are vulnerable to mechs. That's a feature of magical creatures. Some skirmishers, some skirmish cavalry, and some conjurers. Overall, I have played as Callus and Marcus before, so I'm going to try something different. I'm going to play as Sorceress Mordra to start off. I'm going to start on medium, not hard, just because I'm not the best at this game, and we'll see how things go. So let's start our campaign to liberate air from the Shadowlord.
The time of waiting is over. No longer shall we bend beneath the oppression of the Shadowlord. The Council of Five places all its trust and hope in you to carry forth the rebellion. Our first objective is to recapture one of the 5 continents of air, to create a haven for those who suffer the Shadowlord's cruelty. The continent of Kildonia, devastated by the Shadowlord's wrath, is now little more than a barren wasteland. Yet, it provides the best hope for victory. The Shadowlord's minion, King Draga, does not watch his borders closely, nor does he take any interest in the local populace, save for food and pleasure. King Draga's troops, like their leader, have become lax and scattered across the small continent, concerned only with their own boasting and petty quarrels. A swift march across the continent should enable you to capture King Draga's castle before he has time to marshal his forces. Once that is accomplished, the people of Air should rally to your banner of freedom. But for now, we can provide you with only limited support. The Council of 5 relies on you to command those limited forces efficiently.
Okay, so here is the first continent, and this will go through a few little tutorial things. Between each battle and before the first battle, you have an opportunity to purchase new units and to allocate how the gold that you win will be spent. This is similar to Panzer General, if you've ever played Panzer General. So when I go to manage my army, I can see up here all the units I have. The first barbarians, lizardmen, elf bowmen, fire beetles, and apprentices. This unit may not upgrade, and neither can these beast units. Yeah, race beast, so that's all different. So, stats-wise, basically, melee is one of the attack styles. You have melee, you have skirmish, and you have missile attacks. And they occur in the order missile, skirmish, melee. So if a unit, almost all units except for siege engines, only attack at a range of 1 square. But if a missile unit, for example, attacks a melee unit, it doesn't get any return fire. Normally, if you have a melee unit attacking a melee unit, both fight. If a missile unit attacks a melee unit, it doesn't fight. If a skirmish unit attacks a melee unit, the melee attacker doesn't get any defense. So strategically speaking, missiles and skirmishers attacking melee infantry can basically pick away at them without receiving any damage in return. On top of that, missile units provide supporting fire to friendlies defending in adjacent hexes, and siege engines, down here, siege engines, provide support fire to adjacent units that are attacking cities. So you have all these different kind of strategic levels. Yeah, the siege attack is basically a special missile attack. So for now, I can buy up to 4 units. I have 50 gold. I have access to lizardmen. If you look at them, you'll notice this is kind of the standard heavy infantry you start off with, the warband, and it's mortal. 15 attacks, 15 life, movement 3, search 2. So that's the range at which it can see other units. You may notice the lizardman is objectively superior, and by quite a bit. Now, there is a bit of a downside in that the warband, a mortal unit, can upgrade later on as you go along. I have a magical sword, apparently. Lizardmen cannot. Beasts can't upgrade. But they're better right off the bat. Light infantry is, of course, faster than heavy infantry, typically, although beasts are actually just as fast as light infantry. Light infantry also have a bonus in rough terrain over heavy infantry. Skirmishers, naturally, they have that skirmish attack, which can be quite useful. And archers are a good defensive unit. I don't have any cavalry whatsoever, so I think I am going to buy... another unit of fire beetles. I could get some light cavalry, which are cavalry with a skirmish attack. I don't find them all that useful. I have access to both wyverns and flying snakes. Sky hunters, as flying units, are very, very useful. They can't be attacked by melee units. They can only be attacked by ranged attacks. And, of course, they can fly around and do as they please a lot of times. So I am going to buy a unit of flying snakes. That leaves me only 9 gold. And I will spend that 9 gold on... That's not quite enough for an elf bowman. So instead, I will buy 2 slingers, and that will spend all of my money except for one gold. Over here, this is progression, how progression is handled in between scenarios. So as you level up, as you win scenarios, you get gold, and a percentage of your income goes to what you can spend, and a percentage goes to each of these different unit types. So as you can see, beast-wise, I can research both mortals and beasts because I am playing the sorceress. I can research eagle riders for sky hunters, centaurs for cavalry, and barbarians for heavy infantry, and I can also research all of these different mortal units in these different categories. This game actually mechanically rewards you for having a balanced army, for having units in a lot of different categories. But, that said, I don't find bombardiers terribly useful for reasons I'll get into later. I don't find siege engines all that useful, so I'm going to cut both of them down to 3%. I do like archers. I also like cavalry. Heavy infantry is probably overall the most useful, so I'm going to kick that up to 10%. I'm going to kick archers up to 10%, and I'm going to kick cavalry up to 10%. And I will take, spellcasters, also not terribly useful. I'll take them down to 6%, so now I still have 30% to spend, and the rest is all getting spent on research here. So that's great. So now, we can go into the first battle, and I can attack Farreach Valley, or the Scarlet Plain. We're going to start with Farreach Valley. We're trying to get over here to Dragario Castle, but we kind of want to conquer everything. So, the Council of Five has scryed Farreach Valley, but has found only scattered indications of King Draga's forces, and these appear to be no more than raiding parties. A decisive attack is needed to compel King Draga's forces to retreat from the region. Okay, so, we're deploying the army. So, I've summoned unicorns and balloon hangers. I summoned balloon hangers? Why on earth am I summoning balloon hangers? So, we have this little map. It's not very big, since this is an intro scenario. I'm going to... Down here you can see the unit that I'm deploying. I'm first deploying my barbarians, so I'm going to put my barbarians up front. Lizardmen flanking. I've got my slingers over here on the flanks. I'll put my archers right in the center because they can provide defensive fire to all these units. I'll get my fire beetles up here, where they have this open plain to go through. I'll put these unicorns down there, where they can swing in that direction. I have my flying snakes up front. They can be in the same space as infantry. And I also have some balloon hangers, so I'll put them right over there. And over here you can see I can view the flying units. Yep, those are literally guys with rifles hanging from balloons. And I can view ground units. So, I am going to end my deployment. And I'm ready to go. I have 10 turns left. So scenarios, I'm gonna turn the music off because that is a little bit annoying. It's very loud in my ears. I don't know how loud it is in yours. So, every scenario has a time limit, and it has objectives. So over here you can see, these are my objectives. They have a little flag thing on them. Those are the places I have to capture. I am going to... You move your units one by one. It's a turn-based, hex-based game, like many old strategy games. So we're going to send the flying snakes out there to see what they can see, and what they can see is nothing. You can click on them to kind of give some of their stats here. One interesting combat facet to note. You have life, and then you have dead and wounded. So, units in this game persist between scenarios, and they can gain experience. Life represents their total health pool, and attacks is linked to life. Less life, less attacks, means less chances to do damage. Melee rating determines basically how likely each attack is to succeed versus armor. So, as your life goes down, you can have either wounded members or dead members in the unit. Wounded members can be replenished just by resting for a turn. Dead members have to be replenished more slowly, or they regenerate between scenarios. But, more importantly, each dead member reduces your experience, because you have to recruit new troops who are green. So, deaths are very, very bad, and the game considers them much, much worse than wounded. So sometimes you'll have combats where a far superior unit actually takes more casualties, but all of its casualties are wounded, whereas the unit it's fighting takes a couple of dead. And that makes that unit much worse off in the long run. I'm going to get the balloon hangers also up there, supported by the flyers. I'm going to send my fire beetles up in this direction. Okay, so we can now see some enemy units. We've got some goblins down here, light infantry, 7 and 8. And you can click on them to get this nice little picture. It's pretty cool. More goblins up there. Up here I have some orcs, which are heavier infantry. Melee 9, armor 13. Now, in comparison with our barbarians, they are going to get whomped, because our barbarians are really, really good. And I got to summon those for nothing. I just get those to start off with. That's pretty cool. Even compared to our lizard men, orcs are not all that impressive. They have the same armor and less melee, so our lizard men should be able to thwomp them pretty effectively. We've got our unicorns up here. They have melee attack 9, 10 magical, and 9 armor. We get our unicorns down in that direction. We'll push the archers up here to support the main infantry drive towards the town. Slingers up in this direction, and the fire beetles will continue to flank north. Okay, so I'm done with my turn. Place unit. I don't have any units to place. So we're going to end the turn. Now, you can see there, the 5th goblins took 7 wounded. Nobody died, but of their 15, 7 are now injured, which means their attacks are down to 8. And the 11th unicorns took no damage whatsoever. Down in the bottom left, you can see kind of an idea of how the match will probably go. It says I'll take 1 wounded, and I'll wipe the 5th goblins out by wounding all 8 of their remaining members. So I'm going to do it. I actually lost 1 dead there, which is unfortunate, very unfortunate, but I did win. It's not that bad a loss. The balloon hangers are going to move over here and shoot. The 4th goblins are broken, and they've taken a bunch of casualties, which is nice. So now my barbarians can move up and finish the job. There go the 4th goblins. I did not mean to move him there, but that's okay. That is one of the little quality of life things this game doesn't have. If you click on a unit and then you click somewhere else, you're going to move there. You have to right-click in order to get out of that, unfortunately. Over here, where's my other fire beetle? I had 2. That's interesting. Oh, there he is. I just wasn't scrolled over far enough. I'm gonna get my skirmishers over and provide a little bit of skirmish fire. I'll move my archer up, yeah, over there to support. My flying snakes have already moved. Now my cavalry can charge those goblins, and they're falling back. We're not going to let them get away. We're going to move the other cavalry up and finish them off. Took a wound. Doesn't matter all that much. So as you can see, we've already almost finished the match. These orcs are guarding that town, and these orcs are moving down there. But nothing that I really have to worry about. Exit the unit menu and end the turn. One complaint that I do have is that you can see there, the enemy moves happen super, super quickly. There's got to be a DOS box setting to change that, I'm sure. I don't know what it is. So over here I'm going to rest. Resting restores your wounded members, but not the dead ones. So you can see I have 0 wounded now, but I still have 1 dead. That won't be too bad, though. We're going to get the archer up here to shoot at those orcs. No return fire because it is an archer. Get these skirmishers over here to shoot at the orcs. Actually did quite a bit more damage, which is nice. The flying snakes. Stat-wise, I don't really want them going toe-to-toe with orcs. I think I'm just going to charge in the cavalry. So my fire beetles are disordered and took a death, but they won. And now the enemy offers to surrender. This is actually something that I really like in this game. If the enemy feel they are too outclassed, they'll just give up, so you don't have to hunt down every last one of them. So we're going to go with yes. And exit the unit menu and end the turn. And we win the scenario. So we got 100 gold. Some is spent on research. We look at our rewards. You can see they're starting to unlock little units here. We're unlocking longbowmen. We're unlocking barbarians. We've got a little ways to go still on centaurs. So that's the first scenario. Let's see if we can liberate at least one more area. We've got the unit-wise. I don't have anything special I can do. I do still have I got a volunteer unit, so this is a nice little feature. Sometimes when you win scenarios, volunteers will join you. They are units that only persist for this campaign. So, as a consequence, you don't really have to care about them. You can just kind of throw them in and let them do what they'll do. So this is a nice little light infantry unit that I can just use. I think this is also a volunteer? Question mark? Because I don't remember hiring any apprentices. Maybe I just had them. I think, going to put my magical sword on the flying snakes. So now they have +2 melee, and their attack is magical, which is pretty sweet. I have 36 gold, but I don't have any empty unit slots, so we're just going to move right along. Horroot Forest. Your victory in the west has proven more successful than the Council of Five had dared hope. The local population has once again taken up arms, and on the heels of your rout of the enemy, they have driven King Draga's forces north into Horroot Forest. It seems, however, that the light resistance you faced was due to King Draga preparing to send several units to Fire Isle, where they were to join the Shadowlord's armies. Emerging from his slothful corruption, King Draga is sending those troops into Horroot Forest to garrison its towns. By denying the Shadowlord his troops, you have already scored a minor victory against him. The task at hand now is to preserve that victory. You must ferret out all of King Draga's troops and destroy them. Okay, so our goal in this scenario is to kill King Draga's troops. So I have summoned some Wing Riders, which is nice. So let's take a look at the map. I've got towns up there. I've got one town down here. And I've got some forests. Okay, I'm going to put my barbarians that way. I think I'm going to have the main infantry thrust be in this direction and use light units to clean up that one town down there and then move north to join me. So I've got the Lizardmen barbarians, I've got the volunteers, slingers. I'll put one skirmisher up that way, put the archer there. The fire beetles can join the downward thrust along with the flying snakes. I've got the wing riders up there. And all units deployed, so we will end placement. So right away I can see some troops. I've got some orcs up that way. I've got some goblins down that way. So my wing riders, melee 11, armor 7. Over here, got more wing riders. Okay, so these wing riders, I think I'm gonna just throw right up there. Wing riders and air units in general can't capture towns, but by moving them up there, I give myself pretty good vision. I do have some goblins. Over here I have some serpent riders, which are enemy cavalry. Not bad cavalry, but not up to par with my troops. I'm going to move the lizardmen down this way to attack those goblins. Both sides took some injuries up. There are some orcs supporting them. So let's get the flying snakes over and deal with those goblins post-haste. The barbarians, so they have some archers, which means they're going to get support fire. I don't like that. I'm going to try to shut those archers down as quickly as I can. Since these are a summoned unit that's going away, I don't really care that they are taking a lot of damage. The fire beetles need to move down that way. These fire beetles can come up north. I think I'm going to play this a little bit more defensive this time. I'll get my infantry line up there, put my archers in behind them, use the peasants to flank the cavalry to make attacking them a bad idea, get the skirmishers lined up. This skirmisher, I'm going to put my conjurers back in there, just so that I can put the skirmisher in front of them, because the apprentices are a vulnerable unit because they only have 10 life, which means that they're very, very vulnerable to being hammered by, say, serpent riders. So I think that's going to be it for this turn. So let's end the turn. Okay, they're attacking my slingers. Fine. That's actually okay. Now I get a magical attack on the serpent riders. The slingers get an attack with no pushback. And then I'm going to shift my heavy infantry over there to finish the serpent riders off. The archers can move forward, take a pot shot at the orcs. The slingers can move forward down that way to take a pot shot at those goblins, which are now disordered. Move them down, finish the goblins off, get my heavy infantry in against those orcs, and then back them up with a cavalry charge to disorder the orcs and drive them off. Then I can capture the town with my light infantry and pick away a little bit more damage. Ooh. Shandel the Enchantress steps through a glowing nimbus behind the altar and greets you with a bewitching smile. Praising your cunning skills, she gladly joins your army. Okay, so this is another cool little feature of the game. If you take certain objectives fast and it doesn't tell you what those objectives are. You can only find out by looking at walkthroughs, basically. Then you'll get certain little hero units. Hero units have less life, they only have 10 life, but they tend to have very good stats and special abilities. So in this case, Chandel has a powerful magical melee attack, good armor, decent movement, and she has charm, which means she can target an enemy unit and make it attack an enemy of your choice if it fails a save, which is pretty good. So I've got Chandel now just for free. She's just joined me. That's pretty sweet, actually. Down here, I'm going to have my barbarians come up to take a swing at those orcs, do a little bit of damage, move the cavalry up to guard my skirmishers and pressure them away, and the wing riders. Actually, these guys are going to attack the goblins first. Good. And then these wing riders can come over here and keep the pressure up. Unfortunately, they're actually losing that fight because Sky Hunters in general are not fantastic against infantry. You can see their melee has gone down quite a bit, and they only have 4 life and thus 4 attacks left, as opposed to the 13th Wing Riders, who still have a melee of 11. So I think that's going to be this turn. Orc King Draga is moving around, not really attacking me, just kind of repositioning in an effort to avoid being totally wiped out. We're going to move Chandel up this way to support, actually. And we'll have our cavalry launch another attack on those orcs. And we can back it up with the light infantry. Ooh, that accomplished nothing for us. Alright, they're broken, that's fine. You can rest to regain your health. You can also rest. I think you have 1 dead. Yeah, you have 1 dead. We've got some goblins trying to push the forward here, and some archers there. My lizard men can move forward to attack the archers in melee, which is always a good idea. As you can see, those slave archers are now disordered and very, very badly damaged. So I can move my barbarians forward to finish them off while they're stuck in the ford. My archers, meanwhile, now will move up to put some pressure on these orcs. Yeah, the cavalry needs to go there in order to get its attack in, and the first orcs are just gone. Okay, so we're doing pretty well. Morale seems to be holding up decently. What's their morale at? Their morale is at 105 because they're winning. We're gonna rest. You, how many, I don't want you to attack, actually. I want you to rest. Yeah, rest up. So, morale effects, you can see their melee suddenly recovered. That's because their morale went up. When you're broken or disordered, your attack stats go way down. Which means that fighting in those circumstances is generally verboten. It's generally a very, very bad idea. I think that's my turn once again. I have 13 turns left. He is actually pushing to try and capture my town, which is a terrible idea, but it's what he's going for. And those goblins are going to pay the price. So Chandel's been wounded. Doesn't really matter. The goblins are now disordered. You can see their melee is down to 7. And we're going to see if we can skirmish them to death. Can't quite skirmish them to death. Let's get the archer down to finish them. Okay. We're going to launch a cavalry charge against those goblins. Do a ton of damage to them. These guys, who only have 5 health left, can just move over here for scouting purposes. These ones can move up here to try and finish those goblins off. The lizardmen are going to take that town. And I found 70 gold. Whenever you find a town, there's a chance of something good happening. And these barbarians are going to beat on these slave archers who are standing in the ford. Down here, my lizardmen can move up to flank. They can rest to get some health back. They can attack the orcs. They took 2 dead, but they're volunteers. I don't care if they die. And my slingers will finish the orcs off and then move up this way. Okay, doing good. We've got 2 orcs, 1 slave archer, 1 pretty decent goblin, and 1 very, very badly damaged goblin to go. If you check down there, right by the goblin name, you can see those shields. This goblin unit has actually gained a level, so if you compare stat-wise, see, these goblins have 7 melee, these goblins have 9 melee, and they also got an armor bonus, because they leveled up, so they're actually quite a bit tougher. Melee 9, armor 10. They're as good at fighting as Orcs, although not as well defended. However, they only have 1 life left, so they're going to suck and die pretty quickly here. There are a lot of other buttons over here, which are kind of cool. They're not really valuable right at the moment. This one shows only the terrain versus showing the units on top. That can hide the hex grid if you don't want it. This one lets you just look around without actually giving any orders, which is kind of cool. But once again, not really terribly useful during the game. So let's end the turn. So you can see here the enemy is making a full court press, advancing to try and take me out. We're going to finish off those goblins to ensure that they can't level up anymore and become a thorn in my side. Let's get the archers up here to shoot at the goblins without risk of retaliation. Let's get them up here. Let's have them rest to get some of their health back. The flying snakes, I kind of want to jump on the archers with them. I'm going to jump on the archers with the flying snakes. I did take 2 dead, unfortunately. Yeah, you just rest up. So they've regained quite a bit of their health, which is good. The second lizardmen can't move, but the cavalry can. Let's actually get a melee attack in first on those goblins, and then the cavalry can charge across. They got defensive fire from those archers, you saw that, but they did still win the battle very decisively. The lizardmen can swing up flanking here and attack those goblins with supporting skirmish fire. Down here, the first volunteers can advance with the 7th fire beetles in support. Chandel can just rest for a turn, get some of her health back, because the fighting is going pretty well. I do have 2 dead on the 8th flying snakes. I do have 2 dead on the 3rd lizardmen. Death, as I said, having dead members slows unit recruitment, but it's inevitable that you're going to have some dead, unfortunately, so I don't really sweat it too much. You just have to kind of try not to get into really bad situations where you're going to take a lot of casualties. You can see here, some of my units are already gaining experience. The 4th fire beetles are going to be gaining a level pretty soon. Orc King Drog is attacking, but my defensive fire didn't really help. The fire beetles got caught in the woods and so got driven back, as did my wing riders under attack by archers. Archers in general do very well against flying units. However, those 4th slave archers had to come into the water in order to do that, and since water gives you such a defensive penalty, they really suffered a lot. Let's get the slingers up. Let's get her up. I want to try and cast Charm. The first Orcs is Charmed. Select a target. No targets. Okay, but they're charmed, right? So they won't attack me? Hopefully that's what that means. Well, they're broken at least. So now their melee is only 4, which is really nice. We're going to surround them and try to pretty much finish them off. I'm sorry, that was a misclick. I didn't mean to send them there. Let's get the cavalry up there, launch an attack, finish the first Orcs off for good. Yep, the 4th fire beetles are definitely going to be leveling up pretty soon. You have 3 wounded, so why don't you rest? You have 7 wounded. Or how many wounded do you actually have? Well, I wanted to see your stats, but they attacked anyway. Oh well, they were just a volunteer unit. It's okay that they died, he says callously. We're going to let you rest, but you are going to move up to provide cover for the slingers, I think? Nah, actually, you're going to just come down here. If he attacks the slingers, that's fine. Because the slingers are a skirmisher unit, their counterattack, if they get attacked, they actually get to use their skirmish as a counterattack, I believe. And the skirmish attack goes off before the melee attack that's coming in. On top of that, they will get defensive fire from the 5th elf bowman, which means that it's actually very likely that if these orcs, for example, attack the 9th slingers, they'll take a lot of damage before they're able to get their own attack in. Just the way the mechanics of the game work. Okay, so he's attacking my lizard men. You can see more enemy units are actually starting to spawn in. In order to stop that, I need to take the enemy out. They're going to rest. They're going to rest. The lizard men are going to cross the river and get into the slave archers. And then my cavalry can finish them off. These guys need to rest as well. My barbarians need to cross the river. I've got my archers in a pretty good supporting position. We'll get the slingers up. We'll get the light infantry up. You lot... Yeah, you have 1 dead, but no wounded. They don't have any archers, which means I can just pick my targets at will with my flying units now. The apprentices can come over there. I don't think any of their units can quite reach me, actually. Yeah, movement 2, movement 4, so they can't quite reach the apprentices, which is great. Shandel can move up just 1 more space. Okay. Turn 7. The orcs are taking a bunch of damage. Oh, the fire beetles are taking a bunch of damage. Cavalry being attacked by infantry tends to fare very badly. There's some kind of a defensive modifier for cavalry that makes it that when they get attacked, they suffer a lot. Can I cast Charm? Yes, let's cast Charm on these orcs. And he will attack. There we go. That's what I like to see. Now Shandel can move up. Oh, she can't attack after she does that. Oh well. We're going to do some more damage to the orcs, move the archers forward, move the skirmishers forward, so that when the lizardmen engage, they do so on favorable terms. Then we can move our light infantry in, and then swoop in with the flying units to cut the orcs apart. These guys are going to get their ranged attack in on the goblins. These guys are going to move up there and get their melee attack in on the goblins. And then the cavalry will finish them off. And then move back in order to stay away from the enemy. We'll get a nice charge in there. That did a ton of damage. And then I think my flying units ought to be able, the flying snakes ought to be able to eat them. Okay, they're offering to surrender. I'll take that because I don't want to dislodge that last orc unit. So, victory once again. 150 gold from the defeated forces, which is nice. And we've recruited and we have a new archer unit available. So, archer-wise, I have elf bowmen, I also have longbowmen. Longbowmen have a little more armor and quite a bit more missile attack. So, I am going to upgrade to a longbowman. Upgrading allows you to get the full benefit of new units without you losing any experience. Now, my elf bowman had not really gained any experience, but still, it's the thought that counts. The beasts, of course, cannot upgrade themselves. If we look here, nope, not that one. If we look here, we can see we've almost got barbarians, we've almost got centaurs. Archer-wise, we're starting to research pistoliers. We're about halfway to staff slingers, halfway to militia, part of the way to swordsmen. And we're getting there on elf knights, which will be light cavalry. Eagle riders, much slower. Money-wise, we're accumulating a reasonable amount of gold. Who's gaining experience? Nobody's gained a level of experience yet, I don't believe. Nope, not even the flying snakes. But everyone's doing pretty well. I have 2 units available that I could buy. I could buy some more lizardmen. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I could also buy a couple of warbands. The benefit of mortal units is, of course, they can upgrade to more powerful versions. Or I could buy some cavalry or light cavalry. I might buy another flying snake, or maybe one of the other unit types. Catapults can be very good when you're attacking towns. Of course, they're not very fast, and if they're attacked in melee, they are abysmally defenseless. But they can be useful. I think instead I'm going to buy a warband, which can upgrade later on to more mortal melee units. So I'll buy a warband. I'm not going to buy any more peasants. I already have a volunteer unit of peasants. Actually, I might buy some peasants. They're fast and cheap. Nah, I'm going to get another fire beetle. Okay. And then I think we'll just attack Sinhelm Valley. So the Council of Five has received warning that King Draga petitioned the Shadowlord for support. However, reluctantly, the Shadowlord has agreed. Undoubtedly, King Draga will attempt to bog down your forces with minor skirmishes, but you cannot allow that to happen. Castle Dragario must be taken before those reinforcements arrive, or your effort to reclaim air is doomed. King Draga has also pillaged the nearby villages of Narcross and Merbek to supply his troops. The Shadowlord's fist, too, has tightened about the throats of his subjugated people. We have passed the point of simple rebellion and entered into a war where total victory is heir's only hope of survival. The writing in this game, as you may notice, is pretty cheesy, much like the voice acting. So, I've summoned wing riders and balloon hangers. I have 2 deployment zones. And down here, my goal is over here. I have a shrine down there, then I have several towns plus a cave. So that's Narcross, Federton, Merbek, the Shrine of Anarch, and that is Dragario Castle. So that is the ultimate goal. But taking all of these places will help, especially the shrines. I believe it's always shrines that give you special units. So, I've got Shandel. It's a little bit hard to control the camera in this game, as you may have noticed. You have to just kind of go to the edges of the screen and hope. It's especially difficult because I'm playing this windowed for ease of use. I'm thinking that my main thrust is probably going to be from the south area, because I want to hit the Shrine of Anarch and Merbek, and then get up to Dragario Castle. So, I'm going to deploy Shandel there, supported by the Barbarians. I'll get a couple of my Lizardmen up top. I'll put my Warband down here, along with the 11th Volunteers, a Skirmisher, put my other Skirmisher up there. I'll put the Longbowmen down here supporting this. We're going to get the Fire Beetles up north, or at least 2 of them. We'll get the 3rd Fire Beetles down there. Flying Snakes, Wing Riders, and then we have a Balloon Hanger, a Bombardier unit, which we'll put down there. And we'll put the Apprentices up here to support the upper thrust. Okay. So, turn 1, and I think my best move first is to send the Flying Snakes forward onto the mountains. So, has he seen anything? No. I do have some goblins up here. Come on now. Move, camera. Shandel will advance onto the road. We'll get the Warband moving up. The Barbarians moving up. The Barbarians will take the front position. We'll get the Cavalry kind of flanking a little bit. The Archers and the Slingers coming up here. We'll send the Slingers down here into the woods. And then the Balloon Hangers will move up to support Shandel. So we do have some Goblins. We have Goblins, people. But if the Goblins try to attack my Barbarians, they're in for a rough day. Our Slingers... We have to kind of cross the river here if we want to avoid a lot of penalties. So, let's get the Lizardmen down here to attack those Goblins. So, 2 wounded versus 2 dead. They do have a unit of Ogres, and Ogres are super tough. So, that was probably actually a really bad call, because I just moved on to bad terrain, and I'm about to get absolutely ganked by Ogres and Orcs, both of which have experience. So that was a... abort that move. So that was a bad day. Move him up there. See if we can see anything else. No, okay. Let's get the Slingers down here. The other Lizardmen. My Cavalry are gonna have to move down to support the thrust, as are my Apprentices. I can summon a Banshee. I can't do it on the Ogres or the Orcs, but I can do it on the Goblins. And that basically hurts their morale. So it made them move, in this case, onto bad terrain, which is okay. My Lizardmen are still going to get absolutely throttled by those Ogres and Orcs. It's gonna be a bad day. Yep. Well, only wounded. No deaths. No deaths. That's good. So as long as I can get them pulled out, they'll probably be okay. All I really have to do now is make sure, since the Ogres pulled back for reasons that I cannot adequately explain, so long as I can get them away, I should do all right. I lost a Lizardman there, but the Goblins are broken, so I'm going to run them down with my Cavalry. They didn't take much damage there, which is a little bit frustrating. Let's get our Slingers over here to lay some fire on the Orcs. These Lizardmen are going to just pull back. These guys are going to dive on those Goblins. And yep, good. That was what I was hoping for. So I don't see any Archers whatsoever so far. Which makes me wonder if I could just send the balloon hangers forward. As long as I keep them on the mountains, at least. These barbarians are going to swing down here and try to crush those goblins in one fell swoop. Then we'll get the flying snakes coming in to do some damage. The slingers can flank around the mountain there. We've got more goblins in the town. Shandel, I think, is going to swing north. We'll send the light infantry and the warband down, but Shandel, the archer, and the fire beetles need to come up north to support this fight, because this is where the main combat is going, and half my army is somewhere else entirely. Which isn't a great situation. I don't need all those troops to kill 2 goblins. Even experienced goblins. So let's see what Orc King Draga has going for him. He's hit the slingers. Ooh, the Serpent Riders came in out of nowhere to do some damage, and so did some archers. Okay, so we have found the enemy archers. It's always nice to know where they are. Those volunteers, woof, woof. Okay, we've got the shrine, and we found 60 gold. Always nice. The balloon hangers. Now, the balloon hangers can fly over here and just shoot them with no possible countermeasures. Get the archers on them, and then the warband can attack and do some pretty decent damage. Pretty decent. I can get a cavalry charge into those slave archers, and then Shandel can hopefully pretty much finish them off. Not quite. Pretty close. Down here, the orcs have moved into the water, so I am going to shoot them as much as I possibly can, charge with cavalry, and then send the lizardmen to finish them off. These lizardmen are going to rest and recover all of their lost health, which is so nice. You dive on those orcs, make sure they don't come back. You dive on those goblins, make sure they don't come back. These ogres, wherever they choose to attack, they're going to do a lot of damage. I can't really do much about it right at the moment, unfortunately. You get on those cavalry to get rid of them. It is always beneficial to make sure that you've actually gotten rid of an enemy unit, because if you leave them alone for a while, they will just go away and heal and then come back. My fire beetles have leveled up, though. That's nice. So they're now significantly better than they used to be. What else do I have going on? These lizardmen are on the cusp of leveling up, which would also be nice. I think that's it for this turn. Oh, he's got a catapult. So his catapult hit Shandel, and then the Serpent Griffins, a flying unit, didn't do any damage. So what's going on here? My slingers are trying to cross the mountains and being very, very slow about it. The first barbarians are going to come down here and give these goblins what for. The volunteers didn't do as well as I was hoping they would. I am going to dive onto the disease throwers with my sky hunters. Actually, I'm going to attack. I might want to attack their serpent griffins. They have melee 4, missile 10, so they're a bombardier unit. So yes, I want to attack them with my sky hunters. So why can't you move there? Shandel, move away, please. Now you go over there and attack them. Okay, good. The Serpent Griffins are disordered. We'll get these Bombardiers up. Can't shoot them, unfortunately. Actually, cancel that move. We'll get these guys over here to attack the Archers. Then we'll get the Bombardiers to attack the Archers. Then we'll get the Archers to attack the Serpent Griffins. And we'll get the Cavalry over here to charge the Disease Throwers. We're pushing pretty fast, and this runs the risk of overextending, because we do have some Orcs there. The Disease Throwers are still pretty functional. The Archers are pretty much shut down, but these Ogres are going to come down on top of me and wreak havoc if I'm not careful. So I think what I need to do is swoop my other flying unit in to try and take out the Serpent Griffins. Okay, the Serpent Griffins at least are gone. These Longbowmen can provide supporting fire for these units. So it's not all bad. I am a little bit stretched. We're going to launch a cavalry charge on those undefended archers to drive them out of the town. And then Camera. Oh, camera. Oh, no. Get our skirmishers into town. My slingers are broken, but at least they inflicted a death. So, could have been worse. And let's get our Lizardman infantry across the river. Move our cavalry up there and our apprentices over there. Can I summon a Banshee? No, I don't have any targets. Nobody's close enough. Okay. Yeah, I shouldn't have tried to cross the mountains. I forgot how bad the terrain penalties really were. Even light infantry cannot go across mountains very quickly. So, let's end the turn and see what happens. Okay, Draga is attacking the fire beetles. They're almost dead, but not quite. All of my cavalry is getting crapped on. But so long as they live, they can recuperate. There, bam, full health. Let's lay some magic down on those goblins. And then some righteous smacking, please. Followed by a cavalry charge, I think. So this unit can get down here and get into the archers, which is exactly what I want them to do. These guys are not actually in anybody's zone of control, so they could heal up. It would still leave them a little bit vulnerable, but I'm going to rest them. I'm also going to rest her, because she's a little bit vulnerable when she's at health that low. The 5th Volunteer is also going to rest. The Slingers are still very, very slowly crossing the mountains. I need to pull my Barbarians north, because I need their melee capacity. Let's get some archer fire on the ogres. Did some good damage there. Let's get the warband over here to attack the disease throwers. Did some good damage there. Let's get these guys to shoot the ogres. They killed one. And you dive on the disease throwers. They're disordered. Good. Now you dive on the disease throwers. But I really, really don't want that long-range artillery fire to take out my fire beetles. So now I'm in pretty good shape. I do have these archers up here that are just kind of retreating in disorder, and I'm not moving terribly fast, but I am about to take out Dragaria Castle probably, well, possibly next turn, maybe not, but I do have those balloon hangers, which is nice. Now the ogres are, yep, they got some damage on the longbowmen, but they didn't kill any. That is a fight that barbarians will win every time. You rest. Can you not oh, you have 6 dead. You only have 8 wounded, so... Tell you what, you rest for a turn. You move up there, because you have a good melee attack. Let me see. You get over there and shoot the orcs. You get down here and attack the orcs. That was a poor decision, apparently. Towns do give a fairly significant defensive bonus. Sometimes I'm just impatient. You all... Okay, let's bring the rest of our cavalry and damage-dealing power down. You rest, get your heals up. You rest, get your heals up. I'm not really too concerned with those archers up north. Finally, my slingers are back. Those goblins are healing up. But the peasants, the 11th Volunteers can at least hold them off, and I don't actually need to kill them in order to complete the scenario objectives. Flying Snakes, you rest. I want him to come in and attack me, if possible. He'll probably heal up this turn, but I'll be able to concentrate my ranged power on him pretty easily. Okay, the orcs took some damage there because they were actually coming out of their defenses. And the goblins took some damage, but they did push my volunteers off the town. So, now, let's get my balloon hangers to shoot those orcs a little bit. And pull away. Let's get my archers to shoot those ogres a little bit. And my cavalry can launch a full-on charge. Did some pretty decent damage. Then let's get Shandal to try and drive those ogres away. Didn't really work out, but it's better than nothing. Let's get a cavalry charge on the goblins to clear them out of the way so that the barbarians can come in and beat up on these orcs. Now the lizardmen can take the castle, the enemy offers to surrender, and Bob's your uncle. Sorceress Mordra is the victor. We have won. In the treasure vaults of King Draga's castle, you find an amulet of resistance and 250 gold pieces. Volunteers leave your army to return home because they were only serving for this particular part of the campaign. And do we get some voice acting? No? Apparently this isn't voice acted. That's too bad. I liked that terrible voice acting. Anyway, word of your triumph over King Draga has spread quickly. People are rejoicing for the first time since Fire Isle rose from the depths of the sea. On the Isle of Four Winds, the peasants have perhaps begun to rejoice too heartily. They took up arms against Aelcar the Shadow Wizard and even managed to liberate a few villages in the northwest. Aelcar was quick to respond, however, slaughtering whole villages and raising the dead in unspeakable rituals. You have only a brief time before those armies of undead overwhelm the peasants, and your opportunity to liberate the Isle of Four Winds is lost. The Council of Five has also learned that the Shadowlord emerged from his seclusion on Fire Isle and is oiling the wheels of war. He sent the renowned mechmaster Ferris to the Isle of Four Winds and is forcing him to build a host of war machines for Aelcar. Okay, new heavy infantry available, so I can now recruit swordsmen and barbarians. I can now recruit militia, light infantry. I can recruit staff slingers. I can recruit centaurs, elf knights, eagle riders, I think, conjurers, lots of stuff. We'll go over all the new stuff next time because our next episode, I have to cut this episode off here. Next episode, we will be engaging in the conquest of the second continent and the battle against Aelcar. For now, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you like this series. I enjoy this game. This game is not one of the ones that I remember playing as a kid because, as I said, I only got it a couple years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But still, it's very enjoyable. It's a nice little fast-paced, light, fun strategy game from back in the day. And it is surprisingly deep, tactically speaking. You really have to pay attention to a lot of different factors. I was only saved in that last battle from taking some pretty serious losses because the AI declined to take advantage of its opportunities because it was busy trying to deal with other things. Those ogres were trying to pull south to deal with my southern flanking maneuver as opposed to fighting at the river. But in any case, thank you all once again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.